Merry Christmas, everyone, and welcome to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and this is the review of Volume 2 of Season 5 to Netflix monster global hit, Stranger Things, the final season. We are rounding up the Stranger Things universe, I guess. I don't know if they're going to do any spin-offs or anything after this wraps up. But as far as the main canon of the thing that we've been following for 10 years now is drawing closer to an end with one more episode remaining. As you all know, the final season were split up in 3 volumes. The first volume came out in what was it, Thanksgiving? On Thanksgiving Day, and as a matter of fact, it came out on Thanksgiving Day. The first 4 episodes of this season. The second volume came out on Christmas Day, and that contained 3 episodes before we got to the 8th and final episode of the season, as well as the show as a whole, which will be released on New Year's Eve. But before we get to that, we have Volume 2, and just watched it, just finished up all 3 episodes. The only thing I wanted for Christmas was this. I didn't care what was under the tree, but I just wanted this for Christmas. And thank you, Santa. I got my 3 episodes of Stranger Things. Episode 5, Shock Jock. Episode 6, Escape from Camazotz. And episode 7, The Bridge. I hope everybody had a happy and joyous Christmas today. I hope that you got everything that you had on Santa's list. And I hope that he came down the chimney and gave it to you this year, because you were such good boys and girls all throughout the year. But even if you weren't, you still got to watch Stranger Things today. Just a quick recap of where we left off at in Volume 1. Hopper and 11, they had infiltrated this military base in an effort to kill Vecna once and for all. They defeated Dr. K and her soldiers, and they discovered that it wasn't Vecna that was in that facility. It was Kayla. Yes, Kayla, going all the way back to season 2, which is probably the most divisive episode in the entire show, where 11 found her quote unquote brothers and sisters, and Kayla being the ring leader of that group. But we find her in there as being the only survivor of the Hawkins lab subject. Max, she links up with Holly, and Dave, she explains to Holly that they are actually trapped inside of Vecna's memories, and they dubbed it the Camazotz by Holly, because that's from A Wrinkle in Time. And so they linked that together there. And we got Will, and he just went full Doctor Strange, and he's a full-on sorcerer, if you will, and he took out 3 different demigorgons in 3 different locations at the same time. He just went pure beast mode. And before Will did what he did, Vecna was still able to kidnap 12 children and Pied Piper them all the way up to where he is, which we will find out in the 6th episode or the 7th episode this volume. But either way, that's where we left off at on Thanksgiving Day. That brings us up to date to Volume 2, and we began with Chapter 5, Shock Jock. And this episode was directed by the great Frank Darabont, who came out of retirement to direct a couple of episodes of this final season. He directed an episode in the first volume, and he directed the fifth episode here. Frank Darabont is so talented, man. One of the most underrated directors alive, honestly, because you think back to the Shawshank Redemption, the Mist, uh, the first season of The Walking Dead. Yes, it was him that brought The Walking Dead to AMC, to the screen for us to watch, and he left after the first season due to creative differences with the, and he quasi retired from that. So he returned for this, understandably, and man, has he been missed. I really enjoyed that episode he directed in the first volume. I think that was the third episode of this season, the Turnbull Trap, which was one of the better ones of that volume. But he came back for this one too. The Shock Jock, we pick up the pieces where we left off with the epic cliffhanger of Will becoming a sorcerer of sorts, having these powers, and Mike explains to them through the lens of D&D. And there's a difference between his abilities and Vecna's and Eleven's abilities. See, they were infused with this power as well. I guess so was Will, but it's weird. It's hard to explain. They explain it very well on the show. I'll give them that. It's explained well, but I'll be here for months trying to explain it with my feeble mind. But it's a difference between the two. So Will became a sorcerer means that his powers is, drawn from a higher being. In this case is Vecna, whereas Eleven and Vecna, they have, that's their power, if that makes any sense. If that's the best way I can describe it. And so he doesn't have to study or practice much in order to access his abilities. He's basically just piggybacking off of somebody else's, as evidence to what he did to those demigorgons. He has to work off of the hive mind or be close to it in that sense. See, I wasn't a D&D guy, so I don't know how all that works, but that's basically how they ran it down. And so this connection comes into play when Joyce suggests that her son attempts to kind of hijack his way into the hive mind and use Vecna's powers against him. And in order to do this, Lucas and Erica, they simultaneously come up with two different plans to get Will to hijack the hive mind. And see, Lucas, he gives a good explanation in his plan, in a way that we had kind of seen before. He was popping some popcorn in the microwave, and he was like, "Oh wait, you remember when we put what's his name? I can't remember. Max's brother. Put him in the sauna and turned up the heat, and the Demigorgon was trying to pop out. Let's do that with one of these dead Demigorgons, and kind of bring him back to life. Kind of give him this ultimate defibrillator and bring him back to whereas he'll link to the hive mind, and Will can piggyback off of it. And so, good plan. Risky, but good. Erica had the plan. Okay, because she saw a picture of the teacher that Dustin is close with, who pops up and always every season gives them kind of the scientific answer to to a problem that they have, and have him build this transmitter that Dustin had built, but Dustin can't build it for him because he's stuck in the upside down. And so he learned everything from this teacher. So hey, let's get the teacher, get to build the transmitter, and blah, the rest is history. And so both good plans. They decide that they're going to do it simultaneously, try to execute both. Meanwhile, we get kind of a flushing out of Vecna's plan here, or Harry's plan. where he poses as Mr. What's It to the 12 kids that he has uh, kidnapped and trapped inside of his memories, and pretty much explains to them, lays down the ground rules that Max, who is out in the woods and whatnot, is a monster, waiting in the woods for him. And so he builds up this motif that she is the villain and nobody should go out to the woods or Max would get him. She's part of the black thing, like in the book A Winkle in Time, which I didn't read the book, but I did see the movie, so I kind of I kind of know what they're talking about there. But anyway, he wants them to believe that she's doing its bidding and would try to enslave the children, and basically he's describing himself but putting Max in that place to the kids. And kids are young and gullible, and they're going to listen to an adult. And that's the scary part about this. The whole while I was thinking throughout this season or these few episodes, while he was grooming these kids, was like, man, this is how cults get started. And then we get later on, and I think the final episode, well, not the final, but the final one of this volume, we get a cult moment, and I was like, yep. Yep, it's there, because that's the way it's set up. It is so crazy, man. It's scary though, because this really happens. Yeah, without the mystical dark arts and dark magic and all this other stuff, but they have predators out there who prey on young children, and even not even young children, but people with I don't want to call them slow, but just gullible minds, even grown adults with gullible minds who will follow these so-called leaders to hell, basically, because they sound good, or everything they say, they're articulate and how they speak, or whatever it is that piques their interest. And it's so scary, because it can happen to anybody. I'm saying those with feeble minds, but we all can be suckered and fooled by somebody who does not have our best intentions. But anyway, back to the episode here. I like this scene for how we got the building blocks of this grooming, and how the kids were gathered around. They were sitting in a circle, and Vecna was speaking to them in his Mr. What's It form, and you have Holly sitting there who knows better. You have Derek sitting there who knows better, and listening to how these other kids are eating it up and believing everything this guy is saying, and they're just the look of terror. The young actress who plays Holly is phenomenal. I've seen only other thing I've seen her in was Evil Dead Rise as the young girl of that family in that movie, and I liked her in that. Didn't really expect much. She didn't have a big role, but I liked her in it. And it took me a few episodes to realize that was the same girl. And I'm like, oh, okay, I can see why, because she is doing God's work, especially in this volume. This was the Holly volume of the season. These 3 episodes, she had a lot to work off of, and we really went on this ride with her. And my God, man, it was triumphant and terrifying, and every emotion you could think of, what that young lady was going through, and it still is, unfortunately. But yeah, she did a marvelous job. I'm gonna get her name before we roll out of here. But anyways, yeah, that was a good scene, and I say good because I loved how it was acted and written, but it was more terrifying than watching a demigod rip off somebody's face, in my humble opinion, because that felt so real. You know what I'm saying? It felt like something that actually is taking place today, has taken place in the past and sadly will happen in the future. So I'm terrified by stuff like that. And so we swing back over to 11 and Hopper and Kayla, and we learn what Kayla knew about Henry and everything except that he was still alive. She knew everything, but she didn't know he was still alive. And so those who didn't watch that episode in season 2 will remember that Kayla powers, she manifests her powers manifest differently than 11's in Henry's, and that she can cast illusions but make the mind see things that aren't really there. And so she does this while she and Elle and Hopper get away from the military base. And she casts this illusion that she is still locked up in that room. But old Linda Hamble, good old Sarah Connor, boy, she would not be fooled by AI. she knew something was up. Dr. K, she turned around and she saw that it was all an illusion and was quickly hip to the ploy that Kayla had indeed escaped the facility with 11 and Hopper. And so we learned that this wasn't the first time that Kayla tried to escape or did escape. She did get away one time before, and in doing so, she discovered something far more terrifying than what she was going through. Because when she was locked up, they had her sedated and they were just drawing blood. She was she being Dr. K was continuously drawing blood from her, like milking her like a cow, almost dry. And she manages to get away, and when she does escape, she goes into this part of the facility where she finds a pregnant woman. And when she looks up at the IV, she notices that they were pumping this pregnant woman with her blood. And so they were trying to replicate what Dr. Brenner was doing before. So they try to make more 11s, or even worse, trying to make more Vecnas. And so it is that really scared Kayla to death before she got recaptured. And she this is like her worst nightmare realized, in real time, man. To see this happening, but she noticed that her blood wasn't working. Her blood was killing the first pregnant woman that she saw, killing her and the unborn baby. And so she is worried that not so much catching her, but this is why Dr. K wants 11 so bad, because 11's blood is like the perfect blood, because she is the closest to Vecna as far as powers are concerned. And so they could probably use hers and it will probably work. So she is scared to death by that, and 11 is freaked out all the while because they all know that she could be more like Henry than anybody else out of that group. And so we go back to the Upside Down, where we are with Dustin, we're with Jonathan, Nancy, and Steven, and they have taken upon themselves to investigate the Hawkins lab in the Upside Down. Now, the problem comes in because they were supposed to be at that church waiting on Hopper and 11, but when they got there, they were gone. They had already left for the lab. And so we catch up to them in the lab in the Upside Down, where Dustin, he's determined that this flesh wall, this barrier wall that is surrounding them, is controlled by this dark magic generator. Like in what was the Star Wars? The Return of the Jedi. The Return of the Jedi. Nice little reference on this show. But they figured they can knock out that generator and they get to the other side of the wall where they possibly can find Holly. And so they're in the lab, and he finds a map exactly like the one he drew, that determines the center point. And it raised some red flags to the origin of the upside down. And now, before we got to that, we saw that Jonathan and Nancy they went up to the roof and saw this little freaky little thing, which is crazy to say when you're in the upside down, but it was even more freakier than being in an upside down, like this little barrier type invisible wall, the super shield or whatever. And so Nancy is about to shoot the thing. So meanwhile, you have Steve and Dustin in a scene that, man, this was probably one of the best scenes in this volume, in this batch of episodes. I love the fact, well, for me personally, because let me explain. Dustin and Steve's relationship throughout this show has been like the anchor for me. I love their chemistry. I love how these characters organically grew to be friends, to best friends, to brothers. And it is just, it's so beautiful, man. It feels so real. Shots out to those actors, man, because they really, really took their time and flushed out that relationship. You know, it is not a romantic thing. It isn't nothing sappy. It isn't just thrown together for thrown together's sake, just to have them paired off together. No, it organically grew throughout the seasons. And we get to this episode where it just exploded, you know, where Steve went at Dustin about Eddie sacrificing himself. He didn't save anybody. Basically just bad mouthing Eddie and Dustin's decision making as of late and all this other stuff. And it blew into a fight between the two, just like what brothers would do, you know, and they fought. And man, it was heartbreaking to watch that fight. Even though Steve really didn't fight. He was more or less like trying to hold him back the whole time. And by the end of it, he just left. He like, man, I'm done. I'm gone. And he left him there. But he left him in this lab, and Dustin found the door. And this is where he discovered the map and Brenner's book, his journal, if you will, where we got more answers and a bigger explanation to what the upside down truly is. And it's much bigger than what we had anticipated it being throughout these 5 seasons of Stranger Things. So he tries to tell Jonathan and Nancy, don't disturb it. Don't do anything to the generator. Don't touch it. Don't nothing. But during the fight with Steve, the walkie-talkie got damaged, so he couldn't get through. And so he's trying to run up the stairs, and all the while Jonathan and Nancy, they can't hear. And so Nancy takes the shotgun and shoots the barrier, shoots the generator. And this is where we find out that the characters had been wrong all this time about the upside down and what's been happening to them since Will's disappearance. And everything started to unfold once we got to the next episode. But that shooting that generator caused a just catastrophic disaster for them, because it could have been instant death, but it wasn't. But it set up so much more going forward in regards to the upside down in this other world that could possibly invade our world. And we are in store for probably one of the biggest crescendos that I didn't see come from this show. And so that's where we left off in episode 5. We go over to episode 6, Escape from Camazotz. And this episode was directed by Sean Levy, who gave us Deadpool and Wolverine. He's also an executive producer on this show. He directed many episodes of Stranger Things, but he is a well accomplished filmmaker. So I'm not even gonna go through his filmography. He knows this world. He helped bring this to Netflix, and so uh, what more can I say? But anyways, uh, when it comes to this episode, the Duffer Brothers had said that this was going to be an emotional episode, and leading up to it, I watched the interview with them before, and I'm like, okay. So I was kind of prepared for this episode. I thought we were going to get somebody passing away. The spoiler, we didn't, but it was still emotional. It was a lot of emotional nuggets throughout this episode that I honestly didn't see coming, and it was good emotional moments, if you will. Um, we get an explanation of the Upside Down after Dustin and Steve physically brawled in the last episode. They put their relationship on the brink of collapse, and the pair reunite and try to get to Jonathan and Nancy's aid after Nancy shoots the little force field thing on the roof of the lab, and it turns out the Upside Down is actually a wormhole that bridges Hawkins to this dimension X, if you will, where Vecna's powers originated. This is where, and this gets explained later on, that when 11 sent Henry off many years ago, when she first created this little rift to send Vecna, or Henry at the time, that's what caused this wormhole. That him going there is where he became Vecna, and so on. The rest is history. So that's where it was all originated for. So it's all 11's fault. But after going through the little journal of Dr. Brenner's, um, it's described as, at least the way Dustin described it, as a exotic matter. Now, I never took physics, but exotic matter is a thing, I suppose, and is holding this wormhole together. So, Dustin revealed that everything they thought about the alternate world was wrong, and not due to dark magic, but it was science that actually held it all together. And so, I kind of skipped over something in the first episode that Will was able to jack in. He was able to jack in to the hive mind and save Max and Holly by getting inside Vecna's head. He actually controlled Vecna for a minute and was able to break his leg. He broke his leg and told Max to run, Max and Holly to run. And Vecna was able to regain control and push Max out, not Max, Will out, and he's stuck. He's stuck in Vecna's little mindscape, if you will. And so Vecna is able to tell Will, or use Will, to find Max's body. And so he hijacks into Will's mind and uses him as a spy one more time, or one last time, as he tell him, to find her body, which is still in the hospital, as we all know, and to send the demi-dogs after her and kill her. And so if you remember, Will had been spying for Vecna and for the Mind Flayers, going back to season 2. You can go back and watch it. I'm not going to break all that down. We'll be here till next Christmas, but it's all explained in previous seasons. And so meanwhile, you have Max. She's now out of the desert, beyond the caves. Her and Holly. She doesn't know that it was Will that took over Vecna. She thought it was 11, because who else? Who else would have the power to overtake Vecna and get them to escape? She doesn't know about Will and his abilities as of yet. And so Max and Holly are trying to figure out what traumatic memory can they find of Henry's, because all of their traumatic, every memory they have of theirs is a traumatic one. And so, and that's when Vecna shows up. So they got to figure out, okay, if we're in his memories, he has to have a traumatic one somewhere, and it's something to do with this cave. And so, what's about this cave that has him freaked out? So they go out in the desert and try to connect the dots of that, and they discover, Holly discovers that the cover over the little telescope has the same outline as the opening of the cave, which I spotted in the first volume. I always found it really weird that they never addressed it. I thought I was freaking out, or maybe I was tripping, but I like, this is the same carving as that opening in the cave, So finally they put that piece together, that M shape is a clue. And so the spyglass, and they're going into there. They have to find the right spot to where that memory took place. So they've discovered a little mine shaft or whatever beneath them, and that's where they go down in. Now, excuse me, a lot of this is explained in the Broadway play, Stranger Things: The First Shadow. I didn't see the play. I did watch something online on YouTube about the play, so I guess I did see it without seeing, but I didn't see the whole thing. It was like the Cliff Notes version of the play that I saw. So a lot of this is flushed out in the play, which really stinks. I wish they would have. I wish Netflix would have released it. Like Disney Plus did with Hamilton. That would have made more sense with me. Because it's a lot in that play that is played out throughout these episodes that if you don't know, it just seems random. But it is canon. And so I don't know why they did that. But hey, whatever. Whatever. But a lot of that is explained in the play. And so Henry, he had found, as a young boy, going into that traumatic memory, Henry finds a scientist, and he's clutching this briefcase that contains some technology of some sorts from an experiment. And according to the play, that this technology had sent a group of men into this Dimension X. That's where that's linked up in. And so we know that Dr. Brenner's dad was part of this experiment. That's why Dr. Brenner, or Papa, is so determined to get there. That's why he's using these kids, these numbers, to get back there, because he wants to find out what happened to his dad. See, like I said, all of this is explained in the play. I don't know why they didn't. Maybe we'll get some. Well, there's only one episode left. I don't know if they're going to waste that episode with Expedition. I don't know, but it would have been essential, I think, for the novice like me. I just so happen to know about that, It had seen that video, but whatever. Anyways, he discovers the scientist. The scientist tries to shoot him. Well, he does shoot him in the hand. Before he can reload and shoot him again, Henry picks up a rock and beats him to death. He beats him to death with the rock, and opens up the briefcase. And before they showed us what's in the briefcase, it cuts away to Max and Holly trying to get away. Max is hearing Kate Bush in the background, so she knows she's close. She knows that Lucas is playing her song to find her way home. They get to the little hellscape area in Vecna's mind, where we saw last season, where running up that hill that powerful scene where she ran and escaped him the first time, and here we go again. But this was the emotional part of the scene. This or the scene of the episode where Max explains to Holly, "Well, you can't come with me. You know, you have to find your own way home because this is my mind, this is my body that I'm about to go into, and so you have to find your own door and enter it." And Holly is expressing her fear and lack of understanding on how to get there, you know. And this is the scene where I was sold on Holly playing this part, or the actress playing Holly here. I mean, boy, what a scene! And Max, Sadie Sink, who plays Max, did it awesome. They were just awesome, bouncing off of one another in this scene, and it got emotional. And how Max was explaining to Holly how you're not weak, because Holly is like, you know, when my mom was being attacked, I just stood there. When you were being attacked by Vecna, I just stood there. I did nothing, but I'm supposed to be this hero. I'm not, you know, I'm scared. And, you know, Max is explaining to her, like, look, I wouldn't have found my way here if it wasn't for you. You are the one who got me here. You know, it explained to her the journey that they took. You got me out the cave. You the one that discovered the memory. You found all this. Holly the heroic. And man, that was so powerful, bro. Because in most movies or television shows, you need the visual evidence of power, you know, somebody lifting up a car off of somebody, you know, something super heroic to see heroics. And that's satisfying. Yes, everybody loves that in film, to see that big heroic moment. But to be heroic without jumping off a building or saving a cat out of a tree is awesome, because I haven't seen this on any other medium before, you know, that, or explained in this matter, that you were the most heroic person here because you fought, you stood up to Vecna, you left, when Vecna told you don't go in the woods, you went anyway. When I told you to go back into danger, you went back there. And all that, I mean, it got me. I ain't gonna lie, it got me. That was so well written, so well acted. I was a blubbering mess right there. You know, awesome moment. So Max gets out, and so does Holly. As they're running up the hill, that's when the episode cuts to black, as we presume that they exit out of Vecna's memories. And so we move on to episode 7, The Bridge, and this is when things got crazy. The final episode of this volume, or the penultimate episode, if you will, going by TV terms. Holly, she wakes up in Dimension X, and after Max wakes up in an emotional welcome from Lucas, from Robin, and Vicky at the hospital, we learned that Vecna is keeping 12 children hostage. And one of the most freakier looking, I don't know what you would call this, fortresses you ever want to see on. I mean, this was like the most villainous layer I have ever seen. Like fingernail teeth, like I don't know what it was, but that was really the most freaky looking fortress I've ever seen with Vecna when Holly woke up out of there and escaped. And so we see Vecna hanging in the air, connected to these tubes that is, you know, connected to the children. And Holly, she's able to rip away the tube from her mouth. You know, she coughs up the black particles and tries to escape from the fortress. And Vecna awakes from this and starts to track her down. And she finds a little opening into the upside down where she jumps through. Bravely jumps through, might I add. So as she's falling through this and she's approaching the lab where Dustin and Jonathan and Nancy and Steve is. They hear her screaming, and it's just so they run out. Like that's Holly, so they run out to go catch her or whatever the case may be. And I was questioning that because they cut away from that scene. Going like, what they gonna do? Catch her? I don't know how that's gonna work. But anyways, they cut away from that scene, and we see that Dr. K, uh, uh, she's in the upside down lab where she's blaming the lieutenant for the kidnapping of the 12 children, and so she blames the lieutenant for all of this because if he would have captured 11 from jump, none of this would have happened, and Linda Hamilton gave us the best Sarah Connor scene ever in this scene. That's all I saw in this scene, and I'm talking Terminator 2 Sarah Connor, where I felt bad for that lieutenant. I felt so bad because she could have snapped his neck right then and there. That's how gangster she jumped on him. Meanwhile, the group they were able to, with the help of the professor, to triangulate where Dustin is in the upside down. They go to the upside down and they find the group, but there's no Holly. And you see Nancy, she's deeply disturbed. And immediately I was like, oh no, they didn't catch her. I'm like, did they really? We went through all that just for her to splat in the upside down. That's the first thing that popped in my mind. But this was even more disturbing, if you ask me. They go out, they explain the story. They heard her screaming. They go outside, they see her falling, but not falling. She's just suspended in air. And all of a sudden, she's ripped back up by Vecna. And I'm like, she went through all that. Helped Max get out, fought her way through all of this foolishness, only to be placed right back to the beginning. It felt like old school Super Mario Brothers. It felt like playing a Nintendo game back in the day when you only had 3 lives, and you get so far in the game and you're on your last life, right? And you fall, you hit the X button on accident and you die, and you got to start the game all the way back at the beginning. That's the way it felt for Holly at that moment. Bro, I felt so bad for her. But anyways, at this point, we find this is where Dustin explains about 11 creating the wormhole by making physical contact with that Demogorgon back in season 1. That pretty much opened the gate, or the rift, if you will, that led to a lot of the creatures coming to Hawkins. And so Henry had already explained it vaguely to his prisoners, to the children, that he wants to merge that dimension into Hawkins and create a new world. And so, anywho's, the team, they come up with a plan to counter the action, to counter this merger. And Steve, out of all the people, Steve is the one who comes up with the master plan. And my wife pointed out something in this scene that I didn't think about it till she said it. And while they were in the radio station, and all of them were in there gathered, that was the first time, I believe, in all 5 episodes, everybody was in one place at the same time. And when she said that, she was like, this is the first time I think they were all together in one scene. I said, nah. And then I quickly played it back in my head, and I could be wrong. It could have happened before, but I think she was right. I'm like, you might be right, babe. I think so. I think this is the first time everybody, the kids, Hopper, Joyce, Robin, and the professor, the Erica, I mean, everybody was in at the exact same time. And it was kind of a monumental moment, man. I was like, wow, that is awesome. It took 5 seasons and the second to last episode for it to happen, but it happened. But once again, it could have happened earlier. I just don't recall. But I think this was the first time. But it probably don't mean anything to you. And sorry for the rant, but it meant something to me. It meant something to me. And so they come up with a plan to kind of, it is a long shot, Hail Mary. They have to wait until the merger starts. And when it gets low enough to whereas it reaches the tower, the little antenna or the radio tower, to whereas they can climb up and stop them there. That's the only way. It has to be perfectly timed and everything. So that's the only way that plan will work. Let me mention before we get to this one part. Yeah, I'll save that one to the end. But let me mention 11 and Kayla. 11 is I don't know. Don't y'all feel like she's taking kind of a backseat this season? She's not in any focus at no point in this season. Now, granted, it wasn't like this show was based around 11, but you would think she would play more of a monumental part in this final season, but she kind of feels like she took a back seat here. But with that being said, I'm not griping or anything. I think we're getting just around about 11, but it's setting it up like she's going to make the ultimate sacrifice here. And they pretty much said it in this episode with Kayla, bringing up a very valid point about her blood being used by the government. Even if you stop Henry, if you kill Vecna, they're still you. And this is what Kayla is telling them, that, the government's still going to come after you because of your blood. Once we destroy the bridge, you need to be on the other side of it. And it's like, yeah. Yeah, in order to truly end this, you're going to have to make the ultimate sacrifice, It's a no-brainer, but it's kind of like, I don't know, low-hanging fruit in a way, for lack of a better term. I can't think of, it's too easy. That seems too easy to me. Like, that could have been done 3 seasons ago, and we wouldn't be going through none of this. But, yeah, it just seems like that's kind of a simple solution to this huge problem. But it's setting it up. That's what's going to happen in the final episode. We'll see. Either way, I'm all right with it as long as it's executed properly, not done in a cheesy way. I'll be all right with it. Even if they don't do it, explain why they're not going to do it, because you set it up to whereas it's going to happen. So I need to know why it didn't happen now. So we'll see. But the big takeaway to come out of this episode, or probably this whole show, was Will's coming out. He finally came out in this episode, and nobody except the characters on this show was shocked. Nobody should have been, because I knew he was gay, and that includes Nora Shep. I knew he was gay the first episode of the first season. This was a no-brainer. So it was no surprise that this was happening to me. So that's why this didn't have the impact that I think they were aiming for, at least to me. Others may have. Maybe there were, or they are, closeted homosexuals that needed this push. And if that's the case, good on them. You know, I'm glad that they put that out there and gave somebody the motivation to do it. But for somebody just knowing better, I knew this was coming. It just didn't have no impact on me. I wanted it to, but it didn't. But it was a beautifully written scene and a beautifully acted scene. Of course, Noah Shep didn't have much. You know, it wasn't like he had to dig deep to find this. you know, all respect to him. But I'm saying he didn't have to dig deep because this is him. You know, he is gay. So this wasn't a reach. You know, he probably just pulled from when he came out in real life. You know, it's possible. But either way it go, it was beautiful. I loved the scene, and I loved everybody's reaction to the scene. Really loved Maya Hawke's reaction to the scene. Her character, because her character is gay, and how she was kind of helping him and coaching him to get to this point, and it was just nice. It was nice to finally get that wrapped up. But we end off this episode. Henry, he has the kids. He also has Holly, who tried to escape again, but through the coaching of Vecna or Henry, the kids turned on her, beat her up. And I mean, beat her up, man. I felt so bad for Holly. Holly was getting the business this episode. But yeah, they all around the table and they begin the trance to start the process of the invasion, if you will. So that's how we leave off. And our group of heroes have traveled into the Upside Down to defend the world. And we have one episode left. I like these 3 episodes. They weren't wow episodes. Nothing wowed me like volume 1. Volume 1, especially where it left off with that awesome cliffhanger with Will and the chaos and that awesome action scene with the Demigorgons and whatnot. That was awesome. But nothing here did that. This was more of a story-driven, dialogue-driven kind of, I guess, get it out the way so we get to the madness of the final episode, because I would imagine it's going to be pure madness in that final episode. But either way you slice it, I'm excited for it. Yeah, this was slow, but it was good slow. Slow burn, if you will. So I'm ready. I'm ready for the final episode that drops on December 31st. Man, what a way to end the new year, and what a way to end the show. I would like to know, though, what did you think of these last 3 episodes of Volume 2 of Stranger Things Season 5? Did you enjoy them? Are you bored? Do you wish they would have just dumped it all at once? I'm kind of getting to that point. I was when I got to the 7 episode, I think the bridge. When I got to that one, I was like, man, they could have just dumped everything at one time. I don't know why they split it up. They really playing with my emotions here, but I'm cool with it. It gives me something to do on these holiday evenings, because I'm old and I don't go out and party. So I have that to work for. I have that working for me on Thanksgiving night and Christmas night and New Year's Eve. And so I know where I'm going to be at those evenings. Will not be out partying. I'll be watching Stranger Things. But I would like to know, what do you think so far? And are you excited for the final episode coming out in 1 week? And what do you think would happen? Do you think 11's going to make the ultimate sacrifice? I'm thinking, honestly, it's going to be Will. I think, if not both, but I think Will is going to make the ultimate sacrifice. Why else would he make this big confession or this coming out? Or, normally when that happens in film, that's your death certificate. that's normally the end. when you have this emotional moment with your loved ones, you know that a scene or two later that he's not going to make it. And so I would like to know your thoughts. Email the show kbradiopodcast@gmail.com, or you can get in contact with the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. You can also subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel on YouTube and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of Stranger Things 5 Volume 2, currently on Netflix. Want you all to know that I love you, continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, have a Merry Christmas, and you all be blessed.